mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 6 of HBO's Industry, entitled Short to the Point of Pain. This is a line that DVD says when he's asking Harper why Bloom is shorting Fast 8. I wrote the quote down, I want to read it. I think it's a really appropriate title for this episode because this question, I think, lies at the heart of not just this episode, but I think kind of like Harper's motivations and every move that she's made during this season, as it pertains to Jesse anyway. DVD says, our highest conviction this quarter has been Fast 8. Why is he short at the point of pain? I think that kind of speaks to how what we learned, I think it was last episode, that Harper is advising Jesse in a way that is going to benefit Jesse solely as a means of keeping Jesse as a client, which kind of makes Harper indispensable. But what she's advising Jesse to do flies directly in the face of what is best for Pierpoint. So that question, essentially like, why is Jesse doing something that we would advise him not to do, is kind of the heart of this episode and of this season, I think, at least as it pertains to Harper and Jesse. But before I get into the Harper and Jesse storyline, I want to talk about Gus and Yaz a little bit. We haven't been seeing Gus a lot this season, but I think what we see from Gus this episode, I think is interesting, and it puts him on a pretty, I think, clear path to, at the very least, interact with Harper, but potentially butt heads. So, like I said, Gus finally has an interesting episode. He's forced to kind of make this choice between taking this promotion that he's been offered or continuing to work for the people. But also, this episode kind of paints this decision in a I think, a more relatable way, in that he has to make a choice between a job that will make his family happy or a job that will make him happy. A person was in the comments last week saying that they felt like Gus's trepidation had to do with like the technical shit like Fast 8 and Amazon and all this kind of stuff. And as is the case, I was proven to be right in this episode, because Gus very clearly says that his trepidation is because he does like helping people and he doesn't want to get into the politics of everything. And his sister shows up. And Gus tells her, and he later tells this to Leo as well, that he doesn't plan on taking the promotion. And she initially seems kind of cool with it, but then he's later at this family event where he's also dressed up in like this traditional African attire. And not only does she say that he needs to take the promotion in order to, I guess, please their parents, but she also suggests that he kind of has to do it because his parents, like, tolerate his sexuality. I love how they don't directly say that, but that's definitely what was happening there. Because he's like, what do you mean? She's like, you know what I mean. But I think that's, again, when we're talking about the decision of promotion versus, job that might not pay well, but then you add in the context of parents' approval versus, your own personal approval, and it makes that decision, I think, a little bit more differently. And I think that we are kind of left to assume that he's gonna choose to take the promotion. And it sucks because I think what we're meant to take from this scene, we see the guy that brought the container of shit however many episodes ago. And I love the little Lego phone that he had in this one. But we see that guy seemingly sitting outside of the office that Gus is in, waiting. And I remembered early in the episode that Gus said, I gotta go do this thing, but I'll be back for when you get done doing your thing. And Gus wasn't there. So, I think that's kind of like the start of Gus. Like, you look at it on a personal level, like Gus is kind of, failing this one individual person. But taking this promotion, Gus is going to fail all of these hypothetical people that he wanted to help in his less, not as well-paying role, but one that's more fulfilling. And I don't like that his sister kind of talked down on having a fulfilling role. I do a job that pays me well right now, but this is what I want to do. I want to sit here and talk to you guys about fucking television and film and all that kind of stuff. And this is fulfilling to me. So I want to make this work. I don't want to sit here and look at this as like, oh, this isn't something that my fucking ancestors can be proud of. I don't give a fuck about my ancestors. I'm 40 years old. I want to spend the second half of my life happy. I don't want to spend it meeting the expectations of other people. Like, I give a fuck. Like, come on. So I get that Gus has this kind of like crisis in of self, in which, you know, he wants to help other people, and that's more fulfilling for him, but he doesn't want to disappoint his family. And if he really if he really buys into that idea of like almost kind of like a guilt, like I have to do this because they don't give me shit about being gay, like that's fucked up. But I do like the direction it's going, because now we're getting more insight into who Gus is right now. And then, like I said, at the top, this is putting him and Harper on a pretty direct path. So really good stuff with Gus this week, I think. And I like the fact that Gus no longer seems to be solely like a sexual being. Like, season 1, I feel like they just wanted to have like a gay black guy on there. And we're like, let's have everybody want to fuck him, and let's have him fuck everybody. And like, I like the fact that they're making Gus a lot more three-dimensional now. He was like such a douchebag in season 1. And, you know, he was arrogant. I'm glad that he's now a little bit more humble, a little bit more relatable, and he values things that are more important in life and not just success and money and things like that. Speaking of people who suck and value success and money, let's talk about Yaz. Jasmine continues to be less interesting and more irritating. No, I think I posted this somewhere. I think it was probably like in the comments of a Facebook post, but like, I think it's interesting how Kenny and Yaz have flipped roles so dramatically and so quickly. You know, Kenny was a piece of shit in season 1. That's to be sure. No arguments here. And a bit of mistreatment, or just general like disdain toward Kenny from Yaz is justifiable. But like, this has been going on really long, and Kenny is very clearly someone who has turned a new leaf. He's trying to be nice. He's a different person. He stopped doing the things that caused him to behave in the way that he behaved in season 1. And Yaz continues to shit on this man. You know, like, she's at a bar. She's continuing to build this sexual relationship with Celeste. Kenny comes over and is like, you know, he's like regular and he's nice or whatever. And she's just like completely shits on him. And it's like, even though he's trying to make amends, and not just like, in a kind of like off kind of way, just like a way where you could look at it as like, oh, that looks like he's making amends. Like, he's very clearly trying to redeem himself, and not because he wants to feel better about himself, because he truly believes that what he did to Yaz was wrong and he wants to make it right. And she just seems to take joy in degrading him. Wait, where does that sound familiar? Oh yeah. Let's talk about who else she loves to degrade, Robert, and how in this episode, as a way of almost making Yaz even more shitty, when she finally has sex with Celeste, she actually seems disappointed to find out that Celeste is in an open marriage, and that this isn't just, oh, I'm so fucking hot that Celeste is willing to cheat on her wife with me. And it's like, no, we have an agreement and it's fine. And she looks disappointed. And then we see her later when she's talking with Venetia about, after she finds the picture of Robert with her panties on his face, we see her like look wistfully at Robert like, I miss the days when I could treat him like shit and he didn't do anything about it. Like, man, Yaz fucking sucks. And like, even the character of Yaz has yet to prove herself to be anything more than just a sexual object. When I talk about the character of Yaz, I don't mean like within universe. Like, I don't understand what the writers even have planned for this character. Like, did they like, it feels like the same thing they kind of do with Sydney Sweeney, where it's like they bring her in like, here's a pretty face that's willing to get naked and be sexual all the time, so let's bring her in and do that. Like, I've always wondered if Sydney Sweeney is offended. Like, every time I'm in something, y'all make me pull my titties out. Like, why? Like, do you not think I'm a good actress? Can I not keep my shirt on for this entire movie or show? And it feels like that's what they're doing with this Yaz character. Like, they bring in this actress who's beautiful, and they're like, oh, we can make her the person who fucks every episode. And she just does that. And I thought what interested me about Yaz in season 1 is, I thought like, okay, we see her kind of like working her way up, bringing the drinks and bringing the snacks and the food and whatever, the lunch. getting shit on by Kenny, and I'm thinking inevitably she's gonna prove her worth. And she really only gets the job because she doesn't throw Kenny under the bus. And now we move on to this season, and I can't think of a single thing that Yaz has done to justify having a job at Pierpoint. She hasn't done anything on her current team. And then with private wealth management with Celeste, she's fucked up several things, including the stuff with her father. And yet she's moving on to this new role, and it seems to be solely because she fucks. Like, not because she's good at her job. She hasn't done anything to prove that she's good at her job. She's just fucked and did drugs, and that's it. So, like, yeah, the Yaz character is just totally just like a complete snooze fest for me. I mean, she's great to look at and watch fuck, but like that's not that's not all I'm looking for in my television and in my characterization of these characters on these shows. So, but yeah, that's Yaz. But finally, let's move on to Harper and Jesse. I'm only 11 minutes in, and this is where I kind of wanted to spend the most of the time anyway. So moving on to Harper and Jesse, this episode started off, I was prepared to be irritated because I read the description and it said something about shorting Fast Aid, and I thought, man, this shit better not be trying to make a riff on the whole situation that happened with Wall Street Bets on Reddit and GameStop and AMC and all that shit. And at first I thought that's what they were doing, but they acknowledge that as already having happened in universe. So like, I'm cool with that now. Like, I thought they were going to try to do their own version of it, but really all that did was set it. They used that to kind of like set it as a backdrop to give us a new version of that. And really the new version of that was just to give us, just to kind of like propel the Harper-Jesse relationship forward. So I'm cool with that. They were like, yeah, this is now happening to Fast Aid. And that helped because, you know, normally I look at this show and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Well, I know what's going on, but like, I don't know the technical jargon, like what it means. And that's still the case here. But this is what I love about this episode and this show in particular, is that even when I don't understand the jargon, the show does a good enough job of helping me understand the stakes. So I might not understand literally what is happening, but I understand what needs to happen. Like, oh, that's good, that's bad. That's, you know, I get that. And that makes for great scenes. And they still manage to pull off great scenes even when you might not understand the technical jargon. But in this case, I understood it a little bit more because of what happened. So like that was perfectly fine with me. So like I said, we know from I think it was last week's episode, that Harper advised Jesse to short Fast Aid, and she guaranteed that it was going to go down to nothing. And then we also know this was meant to be in the best interest of Jesse and not Pierpoint. She's trying to keep the client. And we find out but we also get this kind of like reiterated by Eric in this episode, when he essentially says that her having Jesse is bigger than any individual bank. If she has Jesse, she can go anywhere. And that seems to kind of be where we're going to close out this season, with Eric and Harper potentially taking, maybe not as a team taking Jesse, but Harper kind of shopping herself around with Jesse as the carrot that's on the end of the stick. I don't know if she plans on taking on Eric almost as like a partner, like, hey, me and Eric have Jesse. So if you want Jesse, you got to take both of us. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but that seems to be what they're angling toward to close out the season. But she still has to win Jesse back, which by the end of the episode, I don't know where that is. So unfortunately, Reddit takes control and that price shoots up. We see this happening at the very beginning of the episode. She's watching the price go up. She makes some calls wondering, why is this going up in off hours and whatnot. So the price shoots up, and you couple that with Harper not answering Jesse's calls because she's in Berlin doing meth with her brother, and Jesse's not too happy. But even as the price goes up, Harper double downs on it going back to zero. Like, Jesse's like, I know about Amazon potentially buying it. She's like, no. And she triples down and is like, brick and mortar is dead. It's also like she doubles down saying it's gonna go back to zero, and then triples down saying that no, trust me, even though Amazon is gonna buy it, as if that's something you can just glaze over. Amazon's gonna buy it, but brick and mortar is dead, so don't worry about But I think that scene is kind of proof of the great line that we got from Robert, I think earlier this season, where he asked Yaz, you know, is Harper great at her job, or is she just relentless? And I think we see throughout the course of this show, Harper's not great at her job. Harper behaves as someone who is great at her job, but she's made so many mistakes. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. So DVD interrupts this convo that Harper is having with Jesse. And essentially he comes in and says the exact opposite of everything that Harper said. And see, like I said, this is an example. Like, I don't know, like, technically what all of this means, but I know that DVD came in and said the exact opposite of what Harper said, which is not good, because if you're Harper and you're trying to sell Jesse on this idea, you don't want your boss to come in and say the exact fucking opposite. So, and then I love what happens after that. Jesse asks Harper what she would do, and then he asks DVD what he would do if someone gave him the advice that Harper gave Jesse. But DVD doesn't know that he's talking about Harper specifically, and he's like, yeah, I'd tell that person to get the fuck on. Like, it's such a bad scene for Harper. But Jesse leaves, they leave, and then DVD, he pulls her into like a break room or something. And he's, you know, a very big piece of news. He tells her that the New York absorbing London thing is happening. Like, that's not a hypothetical, it's happening. He's known about it for a couple of weeks. And he's earmarked Harper to go to New York along with Jesse, of course. And, well, not along with Jesse's, and Jesse has to come to New York, but, you know, bringing that account with her. And it's all moot by the end of the episode anyway. But, you know, he just tells her to be honest with him, and she continues to not be. So the price of Fast 8 then begins to fall, which kind of makes her look right. And damage kind of looks to be mitigated. I think Jesse even says something like he's going to sell it at like a moderate loss or something like that. But then Harper, like, it was good enough that the price dropped, right? They like that. She should have been like, whew. No, Harper quadruples down and comes up with this plan to essentially trick. And again, I don't understand everything technically, but this is what I gleaned from it. I could be right, I could be wrong. I'm sure if I'm wrong, people will not hesitate to let me know in the comments. She quadruples down and gives him this plan to trick Rishi into thinking that Jesse is buying shares. So she's deceptive with her hand signals. He's ratcheting the price up. Eventually he does that, and she goes, that's good, and then goes like, and I guess says that, indicates that she's going to sell, or gives a hand signal that's ambiguous, that makes him think that he's buying, but really he's selling at that price. So now he's selling at an inflated price. So I guess when the stock continues to drop, that works out for Jesse. He's money. But unfortunately, DVD was on this call, and he heard all this conspiring between Jesse and Harper, and he goes nuts. He's pissed. And then what I hated about this scene, and I think it's a great scene, but I hated it just like, as a, if I was part of the show, I would have hated it. If I was part of this reality, I would have hated that this happened, how this played out. But he goes off on her, and then she has the nerve to get indignant. She's like, you've always been, you said you're just a, a regular guy, and you're just being yourself. Fuck off. And she tells him to fuck off. Like, the nerve of Harper to get indignant with him when she has lied and backstabbed every single major character on this show solely to serve herself. Like, Yaz, Rishi, DVD, old girl from last season whose name I can't remember that she sat next to, that she got fired in order to bring Eric back, and then she backstabbed Eric too. Like, Harper has been terrible to everyone. I think someone even says that, you're not even gonna have anybody who likes you here, or something like that. So like the nerve of her to get indignant with DVD, like he said something like, I had to hear who you really were, or something like that. For her to try to flip it back on him is such gaslighting bullshit. But but it's a great scene. As someone who watches TV, it was a great fucking scene. So the price, and Harper sits there looking satisfied that this plan works, but then the price goes back up again. And Rishi even makes some sort of comment about like Redditors winning or something like that. And Harper's fucked at that point. But speaking again about Harper not necessarily being good at her job, but being relentless, Harper then quintuples down and goes to Jesse at this Bloomberg interview and is like, look, you can make the price go back down if you just shit on Fast Aid right in, on this panel or during this interview or whatever. And I was convinced he was going to do that. But then he gets a call from his son, Leo, after Gus had urged Leo to tell him the truth about not getting into Oxford, and Jesse bails on the interview altogether. So that leaves us in a place where I have no idea where Harper and Jesse's relationship stands, and I'm super excited to see what happens with only 2 episodes left in the season, presumably. I believe there's 8. There could be 10. I don't know. But really great ending. I have one quick thought before I want to wrap it up. I was very interested in the conversation that Jesse, Leo, and Gus had after Leo called him to ask for a ride. And he's like, I got a car for Gus to go to his thing, and then I got a car for us to go to lunch. And then Jesse says something to the effect of like, you've been fucking my son, so I like to hear the ROI on what I've been paying you to do, which is the helping him get into Oxford, which we already know he hasn't gotten in it at that point. But Jesse doesn't know. And they look shocked that he, talked about fucking his son. He's like, I'm an ally. He's like, and you kind of got to be financially during this culture. And it just, to me, it painted Jesse as a really shitty person because it didn't feel like he was an ally because he's okay with his son's lifestyle. It just felt like he was an ally because he knows that if he wasn't okay with his son's lifestyle in today's culture, he could see some financial repercussions from it. And like, that was just such a shitty kind of way to frame it. So, not a good episode for Jesse. But let me know what you thought in the comments of everything that I've said. And I will see you guys next week for what I believe is the penultimate episode of season 2. And until then, peace.